There we go. All right. Loss Leaders is a program centered around how companies could, and frankly, we think should, step up when loss occurs in the lives of their employees. This is our fifth Loss Leaders event. We plan on having a program around noon or so, just about every week of 2024. The reason that we're doing this, Bereave is on a mission to help companies provide the absolute best possible bereavement response when their employees suffer a loss. And in our pursuit, we encounter amazing companies and incredible people throughout the world that can bring so much education to business leaders that are working to build a more compassionate and empathetic workplace. So instead of hogging all those people to ourselves, we wanted to get them in front of you. So we do that on a weekly basis. And Scott is here today as we pursue that part of our mission. Also, quick shameless plug. If you're interested in learning more about how Bereave can help support your teammates in the toughest moments, we'd love to spend 45 minutes and hear about your team, what you're doing to support people currently, and show you a little bit about what we've built to kind of help bring those efforts all together. Hit us up if you'd like to learn more. You can come directly to me. You can come to any of my teammates or just from our website, bereave.io. Now enough of my gibberish. You're here for Scott Arogeti. Scott is the co-founder and COO of SupportNow. SupportNow has become a great partner to us as we're very complementary in our work and in our missions. And they've built this incredible platform that allows friends and family members to set up a free online registry to direct meals and funds. And my favorite part is offering a lending hand in the logistics of life to those that are in tough life moments. You've probably done a donation for a family in the past. Maybe you've supplied a meal. Two of the main differences here from those platforms that you've probably used. One, more of the funds are donated that are donated go to the families. A lot of those platforms often take a percentage of those donations. And the coordination of the day-to-day logistics is unlocked with SupportNow, which is really, really, really cool. Think about things like running errands and yard work and household chores, transporting kiddos where they need to go. The things that I think a lot of families want to ask for, but they usually don't. I know I'm included in that camp, but SupportNow makes it really easy to mention the things that you need or offer the things that you think could be helpful. Scott, welcome to Loss Leaders today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, Justin, and for that explanation. I mean, you're hired as our PR guy. Good job.
Heck yeah, great. I'll take it. I'll take it. Chat is open, and we'll monitor for questions the best we can. So if you have any questions, just throw them in the chat, and we'll get to them as best we can. We'll also plan to get you out of here by a quarter till, so that you can kind of refresh before meetings at the top of the hour. And we will send recordings out by the end of the week. We usually send them out on Thursday or Friday. So let's get rolling. Scott, can you talk a little bit about SupportNow, why you created it, and what you're hoping to achieve with the company?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for the chance to be here and talk to everyone. So yeah, SupportNow, it's where supporters provide relief to families in tough times. As you mentioned earlier, Justin, I mean, we've all kind of been through there, where someone we know, whether it's in the workplace or in personal lives, is going through a hard time. That can be, it can be loss of life, it can be health decline, but it can also be an accident. It can be a bad diagnosis. It could be a house fire. It could be a car accident. It could be anything where they're in need of support, and those around them, their family, their friends, their neighbors, their colleagues, their friends from their religious, their house of worship community. They all want to take action. So that question as a supporter, when you hear the news of, okay, something's happened to someone close to me, instinctively, you usually want to do something to help them. But that question of what do I do? Where do I do it? How do I do it? That's where kind of the awkwardness can emerge. This kind of walking on eggshells, this fog of confusion that we talk about. So SupportNow was intended to kind of be this platform that almost is like it's the pipes to which support flows that makes it easier to both receive clear direction from the family or from someone speaking on behalf of the family, because it can be a close friend or a sibling that creates the registry on behalf of them, or the family can create it themselves. But this is where you can receive clear direction on how to kind of guide your compassion in ways that are meaningful to the family. And then the last thing I'll say in this answer is that it's also intended to give the family a little bit of space so they don't have to answer the same redundant questions from very well-intentioned supporters. The proverbial, let me know what I can do to help you, which is a very well-meaning question that supporters often ask. But what it ultimately ends up doing is often putting the onus of making that decision on the family that's going through the hard time, which is, again, they're already going through as much, and decision fatigue is a real thing. So one more thing is usually kind of adds to the overwhelm. So the goal of Support Now is to kind of provide this customizable all-in-one platform that just makes it easier for both sides of the equation.
Yeah, I love that. And as somebody who has been on both sides of the equation, it's easy to understand the meaning behind people's offers, but it's also really easy to understand why they are so open and vague, and just kind of not realizing how much of the burden it actually puts on somebody to say, let me know what I can do to help. Right. A good friend of mine taught me to give 3 examples in those cases. Hey, there are people in your situation might often need a meal dropped off. You might need yard work being done, or you might have errands that need to be run. Which one of those would you like me to do this week? Right. So giving examples of things that you actually can do and want to do, and that time bound nature, can really take that burden off. And I think the reason I like the lend a hand component of Support Now so much is because it does that, right? I can say, here are all the things that my family needs, and then you can say, here are all the things that I can offer, right? And now
Exactly.
we're just picking off of a list, and it just makes it so much easier to actually execute on those things.
Exactly. You mentioned earlier there's 4 main components to the platform: the ability to give money, the ability to help coordinate meals, the ability to organize volunteers on Lend a Hand, which I'll get to back in a second, then the ability to share and update with an informed community of supporters that want to hear, especially kind of in a health journey, but really in any instance, kind of how them is doing, and and what's going on.
Sure.
On the Lend a Hand, you're exactly right. I mean, we hear from families a lot that what families really prefer is people to give them a yes or no questions, not open-ended. I'm going to the grocery store. I want to buy you this. Do you want it? A yes or no? Or I'm going to this restaurant. Here's what I'd like to buy you. Would you want this? Or would you want something else? As opposed to, what do you want for dinner tonight? Or what is it I can do to help? It's just like try to make it easier for them, and like mental capacity, a cognitive load is part of the equation.
Yeah.
But then on Lend a Hand, and again, we created Support Now. My wife Jordan and I, who is now our CEO, we created this for personal experience, where thankfully we've been on the supporter side much more often than on the beneficiary needing help ourselves side. And then a couple examples really kind of jumped to mind immediately. A couple of years ago, one of my close friends, or my best friends, his wife was like 8 months pregnant with their first child, and her mom and grandma got in a very serious car accident, and her grandma was in a coma. And when the word got around our friend group, our community, the text chains all blew up. Everyone's reaching out, wanting to help. Everyone wants to do something, but it's just total chaos. And everyone's texting him. He don't know what to say. He's having to be there for her. It was just this like fire drill. And everyone wanted to do the right thing. Their heart's in the right place, but there wasn't one single platform to kind of organize all this. And they felt awkward starting to GoFundMe, because they didn't really just need money. And like there was a weirdness about, hey, you GoFundMe, like the name's kind of awkward for certain people. But there needed to be a platform that was kind of this community support kind of hub, where they could provide clear answers, and they could kind of point everyone towards, like, hey, here are the things that would be helpful. Help with this, help with that, kind of remove the awkwardness. So the way that we've designed the Lend a Hand is that it's bi-directional. And what I mean by bi-directional is an organizer, which can be the family or someone on behalf of the family, can list a need. And that need can be transportation, it could be errands, it could be childcare, it could be pet care, it could be items inside or outside the house, cutting the grass, taking the trash out, getting the mail, cleaning, prayer, visitation, laundry, dishes, whatever it is. But now organizers can add a need. It can be time bound, it could be not a time bound, and supporters can choose to either raise their hand in response to that need, or they can offer a hand and say, hey, I'm willing to help in these handful of different ways that maybe you haven't even asked for yet. So they're also like, you're letting the organizers kind of see, here's the kind of total spectrum of help that's possible that your community is willing to engage with. So just kind of again try to make that process a little bit less awkward.
Sure.
And because again, the support's there, but everyone's kind of like fumbling over themselves in well-intentioned
Mhm.
ways because
Mhm.
it's just awkward at times.
Sure, sure. There's definitely an organization component uh, that Sport Now helps with, but also at some point somebody's gonna have to organize this, or it becomes, again, the support becomes much more of a burden to the folks that actually need it.
Yeah.
I'm curious. We work with companies a lot, and we help their teams support their teammates that are going through a tough time. Um, One of the questions that we get a lot is like, hey, like, we're remote, right? We can't go mow the lawn for somebody. We can't go run to the grocery store for somebody. And a lot of these things, I think, for me, because I've had these conversations so many times, have become more commonplace answers. But I'm curious from you, like, how do you see people that aren't necessarily in the drivable proximity kind of help support folks in meaningful ways?
It's a great question, and actually we added a new feature, and that's where this wasn't planned yesterday, based on feedback on this very point, because
Mm,
the goal is to kind of have this nice blend where people that are local that can help in certain ways that are maybe more physical and tangible, but maybe either don't have the capacity or aren't interested to give financially. But on one side, with the opposite's also true, people that maybe aren't close by geographically but want to help in some ways. So on Lend a Hand now, you can add specific fundraising goals for certain needs. So you could say, "Hey, I need my house cleaned," and if someone is local and nearby that wants to help clean the house, great. Or if someone
mhm,
is not nearby and they want to contribute whatever 20, 40, 50 bucks, whatever the number is, towards allowing either me to handle that and find someone nearby to pay to clean the house, or someone else can kind of take that role as well of taking the funds that have been created and going and finding someone nearby again just to take something off of the to-do list of the family in a tough time. So
sure.
trying to kind of offer this variety of ways, again, just like a registry. The word a registry is intentional.
Hmm.
Everyone's familiar with a baby registry or a wedding registry. And what are
Hmm.
those? Those mean that you go somewhere because there's a major life event that someone close to you is happening, and you want to do something, and you're asking them, "What do you want? What can I do for you?" So they're giving you direction and guidance on here are the things that we would like, and here's how much people have done before. Here's what's left. So you're just choosing from a menu of ways to take action. A lot of that same DNA is kind of baked into the support registry, especially on Lend a Hand. So, hey, here are the things that we've asked for that would be helpful. You can
Hmm.
still offer other things, but like, here are
Sure.
things that you don't have to. It's like we get past the question of, what I can do to help. What you can do to help is what's shown on the registry.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's a great question of like, if someone is remote and you want to support them,
Yep.
uh, how can you do some of those things? And even giving money towards a certain kind of like line item fund for a certain need can be part of that answer.
Yeah. That's great. And I almost now kind of wish we had talked about that feature to bring it up, but I'm glad it came up. uh, let's talk about like take support now out of it for a second. Take the platforms that are out there to kind of help organize things. Just take the technology out for a second. We talk about the workplace a lot, and we talk about relationships that are often maybe not quite as personal, right? What can colleagues be thinking about if they know one of their teammates is out or is dealing with something? What can they be thinking about as they see or hear about a teammate that's going through a tough moment, and maybe that isn't necessarily platform related? How can colleagues with less personal relationships think through that?
Absolutely. And there are a lot of things that we've seen in our personal experience before support now and even just in this journey. Again, with the caveat that some of it depends on the dynamics of the relationship and the power structure. If your CEO is going through a hard time and you're kind of lower on the org chart, it can be kind of awkward to do some of these things. So there is some
Mhm.
caveat to that. But some of the things looking for things on their to-do list that maybe you can help take off their to-do list.
Mhm.
Maybe it's taking a meeting of theirs. Maybe it's taking an account of theirs. What are things that they have to do that maybe they don't have to do that you could do for them? Again, just to
Mhm.
kind of take something that will make their life just a little bit easier. Maybe it is it's helping with manual entry into Salesforce, or helping with research
Mhm.
for something, or the little things. Oftentimes, your colleagues kind of have a better sense of like your day to day preferences. Is there a certain
Mhm.
Starbucks order you have? Is there a certain place you love to go for lunch? And maybe think about surprising the person by just giving them that or bringing them that without them having to ask
Mhm.
for it, just as a way to kind of say, hey, I see you. I know you're going through something. I want to be helpful. Just that unprompted action.
Mhm.
What we hear from families in tough times frequently is, don't ask me what I want, just do something. Because
Mm.
even if I
Take
don't
action.
want what you're actually offered, that thought, that gesture will be very meaningful to me, because it's your way of saying, I see you. So there are little things, and honestly, in particular, in the situation around loss, if an employee has someone, if a colleague, excuse me, has someone that they've lost, when they get back to the office, again, it sounds maybe kind of antiquated in this day and age, but like, send them a handwritten card,
Mm.
write them a little note.
Mhm.
That'll mean a lot to them, of saying, hey, I know you were out. I heard about what happened. I'm here if you want to talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But
Mhm.
I just want to let you know that I'm thinking about you. I see you, and I'm with you. And
Mhm.
again, obviously, the dynamics of the relationship
Sure.
kind of vary a little bit of kind of how much further you want to go and what you know about them. And if you knew the person, there's obviously a little
Mhm.
bit more to it. But just showing up for them in ways that recognize that they've gone through something, and they're still going through, and they're going to be going through something.
Mhm.
Maybe it's like, hey, if you ever want to go for a walk, I'd love to learn about your person. Tell me about them.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
you want to, like, just some kind of like a soft ask of like, hey, like it's like the proverbial like I'm here for you. But just
Mhm.
some way to just say, I know you're going through, because what you want to avoid, we've also seen this happen, where someone goes through a loss, they come back to the office, and their colleagues don't really know how to act. They don't want to say anything
Mhm.
to do. Should I bring it up? Should I not bring it up? I don't want to make them feel bad. I don't want to like get them back in that headspace. They end up saying nothing. And now there's this weird tension
Sure.
between everyone in the office, everyone on the team, and the person that has gone through and is still going through this really hard life event.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what we often find in our discovery is that the person going through it isn't like they forgot about what happened. Like, they know what's going on. They most of the time, they want you to say, they want you to address the often. They want you to talk about what's going on, because it can do wonderful things to make them, to not just strengthen that relationship, but to make them feel more comfortable back in this work setting.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. And kind of along those lines too, I think about like that reentry point, right? Helping teammates understand what to say and how to say it, and how to show up in those moments. But we also hear a lot about how heavy that support is early, right? We're talking the first couple weeks,
Stressful.
and then it starts to fade because people's lives continue, but whatever that struggle was for the person, I mean, if it instills grief, then that grief is, that journey's just starting. Their ability to do the work is just starting to be figured out on how much they can actually do each day. So when you think about that dynamic of life going back to normal for everybody else, but often that their colleague is, starting their new life. How does support now think about like kind of the long tail of the support that's needed versus maybe just the first 30 days?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you kind of two parts of that answer. Excuse me, one part that's kind of more in a general sense, and one part that's like platform related. In a general sense, I think my advice would kind of vary depending on if it's a colleague, or like coming from a manager to someone that they're leading that has gone through it. Because part of it
Mhm.
also depends on that person's preference. And this is where I think a manager can have that conversation with the person. Maybe it's like your work, like your best friend at work, that persona of like, do you want asking the person, do you want do you want me to keep talking about this? Do you want me to every so often, every handful of weeks, check in with you, go on walks, or do you want to just kind of get in a work headspace and like not be brought back? So it kind of depends on kind of the preference of the person, because we also find that for some people that are going through it, that have gone through loss in particular, when they get back to the office, they want to stay in that work headspace. So reminding them, all day, I know it's a little contradictory what I just said a few minutes ago, but it kind of depends on some of the context. Within the platform, there's no end date to a support registry. It doesn't expire at any point. So it kind of depends on what point are supporters looking to continue providing support, and at what point are the families still requesting needs. And it also depends in this case on, is it a situation where a loss has happened and that's kind of the extent of it, or is it a health journey where someone has a bad diagnosis or a major operation where there's like more consistent updates over time. So there are kind of some variables to that. But to also answer your question a little bit on, like, especially in the instance of loss, around major holidays, like the first of everything is always going to be hard. The first Thanksgiving, the first 4th of July, the first maybe wedding anniversary, or that person's birthday, or the anniversary of when that person passed, or maybe around Christmas time. So perhaps a comment before or maybe just after some of those kind of like tentpole dates, because those are what we, in our experience, those are when it's usually the hardest for the family that's going through loss, because these are the situations that they're thinking back to previous years when they had that person at those events, on their birthday, on their wedding anniversary, on Thanksgiving or Christmas, or whatever was their favorite holiday. Maybe it was a random day. Maybe there was Masters Sunday if someone was a big golf fan. Whatever is meaningful to them. So again, it also depends on like how well you know the person that's going through it, and how well you know the person that passed, to kind of know some of the context and some of the dynamics of like, hey, I know that was probably a hard day. I'm thinking about you. Do you want to grab lunch? Do you want to go on a walk? Can I take a meeting off your calendar? Can I do something for you? I want to be helpful. I know you're probably in it right now.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think what one of the things that we hear a lot is like that context is so critical and so important, and people have a different way of approaching their lives, their new life, and that understanding of how somebody wants to engage. Do they want to continue talking about it, asking that permission, asking those questions, can be a really important step for managers, can be a really important step for HR, people teams, to kind of lean in and make sure that they are providing that right level of at least that company based support.
Yeah. Sorry, one more point on that.
Yeah,
There's also, sorry to cut you off, but I wanted to share one more thing. Again, it also depends on the context, but like, if that person has like a best friend at work, there could also be value in trying to kind of channel communication through that person. It's like having that person kind of almost like as like a conduit to the person that's going through a hard time, saying, hey, how are they doing? Do you think they want everyone reaching out? Or would you think it's better to just streamline things to one person so they don't feel additional overwhelm, maybe even like social pressure of having to respond to everyone reaching out while they're gone, or maybe just after they get back? So again, depending on kind of the nature of the relationships, is there someone that's very close to them at the office, or in a remote environment even, that you can kind of get a little bit of intel of like, what do you think they prefer based on the context of whatever again, this is where it varies. If it's something sudden that's around their kid or their spouse, maybe it's a little bit more sensitive, versus if it's a parent or grandparent that had a health decline where they kind of had time to kind of say their goodbyes. Maybe they're a little bit on a different emotional journey than they would have been if it was a horrific sudden accident that was tragic.
Yeah, totally. And so I guess while we're on the topic of like the work best friend in this example, I started to think about the type of people. One of the things when we first met, we were talking a little bit about like who creates a registry, like who raises their hand and says like, I'm going to be the focal point of this. And I think the word that you referred to those people as was lieutenant at the time. And it was a good way for me to kind of wrap my head around it. I've created registries like this before, but usually they show up to me and I'm, one of the several dozen people who now have access to it. I'm curious, like, what have you seen? Like, what type of person is the one that kind of grabs? Is it the work best friend? Is it the close family member, or is it somebody that is often maybe a little bit on the outskirts that just has that personality to grab something and do things? Like, what do you typically see personality wise for the person that actually sets up a registry?
We see a variety of it. And the answer is it can be anyone. I think there's probably about a 50-50 split between registries being created by the family themselves
Mm-hmm.
and by a lieutenant. Maybe it's a
Okay.
sibling, maybe it's a sibling-in-law, maybe it's an aunt, uncle, or a close friend, or a best friend at work. Also important to say that there can be multiple organizers, and you can always
Mm-hmm.
like almost like hand the baton off. So there can be like in
Mm-hmm.
effect like an interim organizer where you just get the ball rolling just because people want to start like taking what's happening on the text chain or the email thread or even like the Slack channel onto a platform that was designed maybe for people to take action, because you can always add and remove organizers based on the preference. So
Mm-hmm.
there really isn't a way that it has to be. Our goal in building the platform was just to provide kind of a wide spectrum of optionality.
Mm-hmm.
So I it's we had well over a dozen created the last handful of days, and some of them were by the mom's best friend, some of them were by the aunt or uncle, a couple were from even the a manager of the person's going through it, or even some on their people ops team.
Mm-hmm.
So it does kind of vary. But again, you can have multiple organizers. There's one registry, I think there's like 12 organizers, where a woman's going through breast cancer and has 2 young kids, and like all her girlfriends came together to create a registry,
Mm-hmm.
which means that they all have the admin access to share updates, to add needs on lend a hand,
Mm-hmm.
to do a variety of things in the back end. And then the woman going through it, is listed as the beneficiary. So she has certain controls and visibility as well. Um, but we're learning. I mean, we're learning constantly. We're just over, or really just under 4 months into Support Now being live. So in many ways, we're kind of in the bottom of the first inning, if not the top of the first.
Sure.
And we're constantly learning more from our users of, what is helpful, what are we doing that's helpful, what are we doing that could be helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and what are some pain points, frankly, from kind
Mm-hmm.
of the 3 main dominant platforms kind of in the space. Of course, your
Mm-hmm.
GoFundMe, Caring Bridge, and your Meal Train, because part
Mm-hmm.
of the premise is that you mentioned this at the very beginning. Uh, it feels like time that there should be an all-in-one customizable platform. So even if
Mm-hmm.
you only want to use money, you can disable or you can deactivate the lend a hand and the meals. And the same is also true the other direction. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't want money, you don't want food, you just want to help around the house and with the kids, great. You can turn, and at any point, anyone can toggle on or off any of those 3. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe if it's a health journey, you start off by just sharing updates because you don't really know what you need yet. And people,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you add a goal, maybe you don't add a goal on finances, but like your needs evolve as you get deeper in the journey, and the
Mm-hmm.
platform is designed to kind of give you that room to maneuver based on whatever you're feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really good thought around the fact that these things are journeys. They often are not time bound. I mean, people, there might be some situations that are a little bit take a little bit less time, I suppose. I think about a car accident that I was in. That was very time bound, right? That was a time bound situation for me. Whereas people that are grieving, or people that could experience any of these situations that you've mentioned, those things might continue on for quite some time. And the fact that there are multiple people that can raise their hands and provide that support, and even have multiple lieutenants, if you will, I think is a really really helpful thing, because I think as somebody who jumps in and kind of takes control of those situations, like there probably is a limit to how much time and effort they can put in, and there's probably peaks and valleys there. To be able to share that, I think is probably really really impactful. I'm curious on that topic. Like, what does it take? Because you've said that anybody can provide the support through Support Now, or anybody can just provide support without a platform, right?
Offline.
It's just it just takes a little bit of know-how to know what to do and when to do it and how to ask for the support that somebody might need. But as far as like time and effort goes into, let's say, kind of an average duration, like if I organize through SupportNow or really anything, how much time am I putting? Like, does this become a second job? Like, how does this all unfold for somebody who wants to lend a hand?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we tried to make it as simple and easy and quick as possible. So all you have to do is go to supportnow.org. There's multiple different buttons that say start a free support registry. The form to create one, it takes usually about 20 to 30 seconds. It's a very easy process to start a registry. And from there, the ask is to give it a little bit of customization, to add a photo, to edit the description, just to say kind of what's happening, what's going on. And then from there, the question is, it's up to the organizer of, do they want to add anything on lend a hand? Do they want to share updates? Who do they want to distribute it to? Understanding that privacy concerns are a thing in the space, and that different people have different levels of comfort of like how far and wide they want to broadcast it. It is entirely up to the organizers and to the beneficiaries of how far and wide it's shared. You don't have to put it on social media. You don't have to email it to the entire company. You can take the 8 people on the text chain that are all trying to help organize support for certain people and only share the registry with those 8 people if you want. So there's no, like the bar is really low. All you got to do is create the form, which again, super, super easy. It's a matter of seconds. There's no contract, there's no payment, it's all free. And then how much do you want to customize it? And there's usually a correlation between how much you customize and how far you want to amplify the reach to. If there's a situation where someone has dire financial needs and there's a lot of help you need around the house, then you're probably going to want to put more in the description and offer more updates because you're trying to compel a larger audience to do more things. And the opposite's also true. If it's just, have you want to organize support for this one, even in a situation of a car accident where it's like maybe someone's going to be in the hospital for a couple of weeks. Okay, let's all help to offer to watch the kids or to get groceries for them, or what are the things on their daily or weekly to-do list that we can just kind of try to like knock out for them so that they can save their time and energy and also maybe their finances, their money towards things that are a little bit kind of higher on the level of importance. So again, we're still learning and iterating based off feedback, but it's not a big burden, and it kind of depends on what the goals of the registry are. And again, it can also evolve. Like it can start off by one person getting the ball rolling by starting and adding some information to it, but maybe then the family, as they get deeper in their journey, they have more needs. Maybe more people want to come in and be organizers from different parts of their ecosystem, their church group, their college friends, their whatever it is. And now there's more kind of like manpower, if you will, among the organizer, almost like the committee of folks helping out.
Sure.
So that the one person that started it, they can fade away. They can go from behind the wheel to the passenger seat to the back seat, maybe even out of the car, depending on what their preference is.
Yeah, a friend of mine used the word democratize recently in a very similar situation, and I feel like you've kind of enabled the democratization of support, right?
And we're even toying with this idea of like, what would it look like, and sorry to cut you off, what would it look like to lower the bar even further to where, what if I wanted to help a friend going through something, I wanted to just do a simple act for them, a lend a hand act or an offer a hand act, without even it being part of a registry, almost like a Venmo style. I want to volunteer to watch your kids for 2 hours on Saturday so you can have a little time off, or I want to volunteer to walk your dog every day for a week. So again, these are things that we're hearing from our customers and from our users of like, it'd be cool if. So we always ask 2 main questions to users of like, hey, what's causing you stress and what's costing you money? And the answers to that generally kind of guide our brainstorming on what else could be offered that would add more value and help in these.
You've mentioned some of the learnings a little bit, and you've mentioned a couple of times that you're listening and learning constantly about how people are giving feedback and what people are doing and how they're using the platform and things like that. And you are a startup, so you're very nimble. I'm curious, has there been anything about maybe not necessarily technology related needs, but just like human related needs that has surprised you? Anything that from the supporter perspective or the supportee perspective, anything that has bubbled up and kind of surprised you compared to some of the assumptions that you made about the business early on?
It's a good question. And it's kind of a cop out of an answer, but like, there's not a lot of things I'd say that have like really, really surprised me. I think a lot of them are somewhat intuitive. Maybe some of the degree of them have surprised me. Um, um, uh, but generally, on lend a hand, people need help around the house, and they need help with the kids. And
Mhm, mhm,
as a parent of 3 kids, 5 and under, whose wife is
mhm,
my co-founder, and we
mhm,
both work from home, I get that, because if God
mhm.
forbid we're in a tough situation, something happened to us suddenly, I would probably want help with the kids and help around the house.
Sure.
So even like thinking of money and food, which are kind of like the go-to, low hanging fruit ways of support, oftentimes those are vehicles towards help around the house and with the kids. So it's like trying to kind of look at that from a different angle. But there really
Sure.
isn't a lot in this journey. I mean, again, we kind of had a hunch that our customers would kind of skew a little bit more female than male. That's been true.
Mhm,
A little bit more moms, people in their generally in the 30s and 40s
mhm,
than sub 25 and above 60, and that's also held
mhm,
true. Typically, it's someone that's kind of social media savvy or native. Um,
mhm,
and we've dabbled. I mean, we've talked on partnership with a variety of different organizations, from nonprofits to hospitals to funeral homes
mhm,
to corporate HR, even on a lot of instances.
mhm.
So there's a lot of things that we can do together. It's just more a question. I mean, the blessing and the curse for us in a go-to-market sense
Sure.
is that everyone's a customer. These things
Sure.
happen so universally, and they're not going to change. So
Mhm,
as a nimble startup of 4 full-time staffers, how do we responsibly allocate our time and resources
mhm,
towards what's going to help us maximize the amount of families that we're supporting
mhm.
through the platform.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. You kind of triggered something. You mentioned specifically around the demographic, and you talked a little bit about childcare, and it got me thinking about uh, I'm going to call it a marketing campaign because I think that's what it is a marketing campaign, but it's also a marketing campaign that actually makes real life impact that you're running right now. I think you're calling it give a mom $1,000 or $1,000 or something like that. Can you talk a little bit about like what's going on? Because I think in the grand scheme of the big three that you mentioned earlier, and the fact that you are nimble and are a startup and are thinking about your demographic really, really intuitively, like this is something that makes a ton of sense from not just a business perspective, but also kind of stands behind your mission of making impact and making change. Can you talk a little bit about that campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We've noticed that a large number of the registries that have been successful and have a lot of engagement have been um, built to support young moms that are going through, in particular, a severe diagnosis. Whether that diagnosis is related to their child, to their significant other, or themselves. So we thought, okay, what if we kind of dug in a little bit deeper on that and tried to kind of help them more at scale? So we launched this campaign last week, kind of as an early test of what if we just solicited stories from people in our general community, social networks, et cetera, and said, we want to give a mom $1,000. Tell us, like open up nominations to nominate someone that's going through a hard time that kind of fits this criteria. And we're going to choose someone, and we'll get to that in a second. We're going to give them $1,000. And if they're open to it, we're going to help share their story. We can keep them anonymous if they prefer. And hopefully we do this many times in the future. And we went on social media last Thursday. Haven't really asked our ambassadors. We kind of have this kind of cohort of social media influencers that are partnering with us to kind of get the word out. Haven't asked them yet. It's just kind of an initial test. And in 4 days, we got over 50 submissions and just
Awesome.
some heartwarming, like in some cases, gut wrenching stories
Mhm,
of moms that are heroes.
mhm,
And I've watched my wife become a mom 3
mhm,
times, and watched her
mhm,
now as an executive at a startup, before at
mhm,
a successful enterprise AE at a fast growing, high impact startup. I believe moms are heroes. What they juggle, especially working moms, but even non-working moms, parenting is hard. It's really hard in so many ways, and juggling everything they do, especially when a kid's sick or when they're sick or when their husband or partner or whomever is sick. It's like we want to help them. We were designed to help them. So we have selected the first mom. We are in the process of finalizing things with her. We're going to be hopefully tomorrow announcing that, and then also announcing online forum to start kicking off the next version of this. And then this one we're going to have our ambassadors kind of help amplify the reach of this, because I'd love to get to a point where we can responsibly do this every week, to be highlighting moms, and maybe even we, if they're open to it, put their information up on, maybe take the names out on some kind of a landing page where people in the community can also help contribute support, towards them. So it's just kind of understanding that there are so many people that are going through hard times. And we were built with a mission to help. We think there's a chance to both do well and do good. And
love that.
This campaign is just another way for us to kind of frankly put our money where our mouth is, and to try to offer tangible results, to not just highlight and honor and show some love, but to actually just give cash to offer some financial support to a mom that's in the thick of it.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for that. But thank you so much for the time today and the insight, sharing about how to support people. The fact that we can use SupportNow is phenomenal. It was all super, super generous of you. We'll add the links for everybody on where you can find Scott, where you can find SupportNow in the follow-up with the recording by the end of the week. Scott, thanks a million. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks, everybody.
We'll be back next week with the CEO of Cultivate Talent. Julie Barker serves as a fractional HR support and advisor to startups and scale-ups. And Julie's seen a ton of work environments and cultures being built, and can really lean into helping folks manage and build culture, focus on change management and preparing for future HR challenges while companies scale. So we'll take a little bit more of a hands-on approach with Julie next week, in kind of an office hours format, where we'll open the conversation to a little bit more of a Q&A format, if you will. Until then, have a great week, and thanks for joining Loss Leaders today.